at one point, I forget, you or someone else asks, most of the people who were doing the enslaving identified as Christians, and they used or manipulated scripture to justify their practice of slavery. And we talked about the slave Bible and different things that were done to manipulate perceptions of things. And one of the big questions that comes out is, okay, after emancipation, why did so many African Americans remain Christian? I mean, a cynical way of looking at it would be, why would they adopt the religion of their enslavers? And you interviewed Lisa Fields, who I've met on other occasions. She's great. And she had this amazing line. I don't know if I got the quote exactly right, but she talked about how Black Christians actually saved Christianity for America. Unpack that a little bit, because I mean, we talked about Reverend Jack Yates and him starting that church in Houston right away. And obviously throughout Black history in America, the church has been the central organizing institution. But beyond the practical role of the church in being an organizing structure, unpack what Lisa Fields meant by it was actually the preservation of Christianity in America that they accomplished.
Yeah. One of the things, because that blew me away, the way that she said it and the insight that was there. And I had never heard it or thought about it in that way. But I'll start from the biblical example again. If we look in the scripture, wouldn't we say that the prophets, preserved and retained the true worship of Yahweh when their kings and the people that we read in 2 Kings or 1 Kings, King Ahab and Jezebel are exploiting the people, stealing their land like Nabal and worshiping other gods. And Elijah confronts that, tells the truth about it, and challenges that, and we would celebrate that as a way of speaking truth to power and preserving the true worship at a time when that was it. There was a remnant, we call it, right? That preserved that truth. And so I think in the same way that when we look at Christianity in America and the ways in which it was distorted by the Ku Klux Klan, by enslavers to justify their brutality based on spurious, interpretations of the curse of Ham or any of these other distortions, or just straight up taking out Bible verses from. Right.
Well, it was, forget distortions. This is just a heretical form of Christianity.
That's what I mean. There we go. Yeah. So what Frederick Douglass said is, I love the pure, peaceable, and impartial Christianity of Christ. I therefore hate the corrupt, slave-holding, woman-whipping, cradle-plundering, partial, and hypocritical Christianity of this land. Indeed, I can see no reason but the most deceitful one for calling the religion of this land Christianity. And so that kind of a prophetic tradition is something that has preserved, and quite frankly, you see a lot of times when people are arguing for the legitimacy of Christianity, them pointing to abolitionists and pointing to those who made such claims and arguments. And so I think the veracity of this, the truth of it, was also the life-changing power. That I don't want to lose that. These weren't just rhetorical strategies or moves. Like what I discovered and learned was that this was a deeply held conviction that the God of the universe was on their side and that would give them freedom, and they trusted him to not only free them, but to also sustain them in the midst of a very antagonistic and hostile society. And so that kind of move gives us opportunity to reflect even on our current day, to see how the tendency to manipulate and distort, and like you said, teach heretically to under the guise of Christianity is still a ploy that the enemy uses to get people to assign or agree to things that are way outside of what the gospel would teach.
When I heard her say that in your documentary, what it made me think about right away, and years ago we talked about this on the show, there was I forget who did it. It may have been PRRI or even maybe Southern Baptists did this through Lifeway. But there was a study that was looking at the doctrinal beliefs of Americans. And then, of course, they break that down into different segments and different denominational backgrounds and racial backgrounds and all that. And what it concluded was that the group of Americans who are the most orthodox in their faith, who read the Bible most frequently, who pray most frequently, are most involved in a church, still are African Americans. So her comment that 150 years ago, it was the formerly enslaved people who started these churches who preserved Orthodox Christianity in America. That's still the case today. I mean, what a legacy. And it makes me think in all the craziness we're seeing in many segments of the church right now, we would be wise to go back and listen to some of those voices like Jack Yates and others, and some still today, who recognize the true witness of the gospel and the authority of Scripture in a way that other segments of the church have become so fragmented, distorted, or even flat out heretical, like we were saying.